Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real.
Greetings and salutations, all my friends out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. Hey, how you doing? Let's see. Today, as always, I want to start off giving a big shout out to my team, Kyle, Crazy Horse Morgan, the super producer, and Grace Awake, my personal assistant, always doing what's necessary to make sure that we can bring you the type of show that you deserve. Let's see, a couple things. Again, I want to get to the show through the show notes because, today we're going to be talking about the January 6th hearing. They had one yesterday at 1 p.m. It is amazing what they have been able to do with the whole thing. I'm trying to make sure that we got the monitor up in the background, so make sure we doing what we got to do. So let me say, so the January 6th committee, they did an amazing job in this last hearing of humanizing what was happening. A lot of times we get caught up in the policy conversations, what does this mean? What are the implications? Who's going to jail? But we often forget that some of these activities that, Trump and his associates engaged in had real world consequences for real people who weren't involved. And we're gonna introduce you to them, a few of them today. I got to be honest, through some of this hearing, I teared up. I really did, especially, and we're going to cover some of that. I teared up because just the human impact and how these people's lives were forever altered. And these are civil servants. These are people who just go to work every day, and this is what they do. Elections officials. You had secretaries of states and all of these people. And like when you sign up for a job, getting death threats probably isn't one of the things that's in the job description. And the implications and the impact of all of this has been amazing. And so another thing, big ups to the January 6th committee, because they have kept the narrative going and made this a story, not just something that is happening, a boring government hearing, but really brought out the opportunity to understand what these crimes or these alleged or potential crimes, the implication that they had on real life people. It is, oh my God, it is amazing. It had me choked up, teared up a little bit. It was because when you realize like how harmed real people were in this whole exchange, it pulls at your heartstrings. So let's go ahead and get through some of this, some of the show notes and the administrative stuff we got to do, so we can go ahead and talk about the January 6th committee. Woo! We're gonna talk about it. First, speaking of politics and governments and all of those things, make sure that you stay up to date on our continuing coverage of Maryland's elections. This is a big year coming up, and we need to be clear on what's going on. You know what? I think we'll do a show on Maryland elections in the near future, basically a how-to kind of guide. So I think we may end up doing that. But make sure that you follow our continuing coverage, because we're bringing you delegates and senators and gubernatorial candidates and all of these people, so you can get an opportunity to know them and hear directly from them what they plan to do if they are elected. Also, I want to make sure that we give a big shout out to Darker Than Blue Grill. Darker Than Blue is located on 413 North Charles Street in Baltimore City. They have amazing food. You would do well to bring yourself to Darker Than Blue Grill to make sure you get something there. I mean, I'm allergic to shellfish and stuff like that, so I can't speak to the seafood side of their menu. But I can tell you that their cowboy prime rib and their burger are amazing, and I can't wait. So, once I get something, I try to stay with that. So I'm a branch out. I'm a branch out. So if you all have any suggestions or anything else I should branch out at when next time I go to Darker Than Blue Grill, just let me know and I'll try it. Otherwise, I think I'm gonna stick with what I know. But the food is amazing and the service is wonderful. It's a Black-owned business that supports the Black community. So make sure that you stop by Darker Than Blue if you want to celebrate some things. I am very, 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 very happy with Black USA News's partnership with Breadcoin. Breadcoin is an organization that takes your donations and turns them into opportunities to help people address nutrition issues. There's some of the people that we serve, they live in what's called starvation zones, where there's no good food options around them. And so what Breadcoin has done is Breadcoin has partnered with local restaurants and caterers so that they will accept Breadcoin. Then Breadcoin goes to organizations that already work in the community with people who have nutrition issues, people who are homeless, and people who have other circumstances where food is not easy to get to or easy to access in their area. They give them the Breadcoin, and they are able to go to the restaurant or to the caterer, and they're able to get something to eat and still maintain their dignity. For me, that's one of the biggest things that I'm excited about with the partnership is the opportunity to maintain dignity and to have your needs addressed at the same time. There are a lot of programs that well-meaning people have created that require people to give up their dignity in order to get services, to divulge their entire lives and to sit in judgment to see if they're worthy or not for assistance. I know that is a limitation for a lot of people, even asking for help. And so to have an organization that understands that dynamic and still provides an opportunity for people to have their needs met without having to sacrifice their dignity, it's a privilege to work with them. Also, speaking of a privilege, opportunity to let you all know and tell you about Fosterpreneur. Fosterpreneurs Incorporated is an amazing organization that works with the alumni of the foster care system so that they can develop the skills and experiences necessary to be successful in entrepreneurship. If you all know about this foster care system, you know that there are many obstacles that stand in the way of students or alumni of the foster care system becoming successful. And so what we're able to do is to help them develop those skill sets, to help them make sense of all of the noise around you or around them, and be able to identify what resources they need to make their dreams and their goals come true. So I'm very, very happy to be part of that. If you have an organization or you know an individual who is an alumni of the foster care system or currently in the foster care system, please direct them to Fosterpreneur's website, and that's fosterpreneur.org. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my company, and then we'll get to January 6th.
Hi, my name is William Honolulu Jr., and I'm the host of the Black USA News Morning Show and the president of the Grinding Gang Incorporated. The Grinding Gang is an organization that helps small business owners in the nonprofit and for-profit communities figure out how to make sense of all the noise. There's a lot of information out there, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. We help you develop business plans. We help you figure out what to do with a lot of the information you receive. And we also help you figure out how to become more profitable. We also host a variety of workshops. You can check out our next workshop on grant writing right here.
All right, that is what my company can do for you. So make sure that you hit me up at the Grinding Gang so that we can help you meet and achieve your goals. All right, let's get into the January 6th committee hearing. Oh my, the committee has done an amazing job of telling this story. Hey, Rico, good morning. By the way, anybody who wants to be a guest on Black USA News, you can go to the link here. It should be in the description as well. And you can sign up to be a guest on Black USA News. And another thing before we get into it, thank you. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to what we have to say and really being a part of the audience. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the love, appreciate the questions. And this is actually part of this ongoing coverage of the January 6th is actually inspired by one of our audience members, Shonda Duncan. She was asking me what was going on with January 6th, and there was a lot of information, and that's one of the things that we talked about before. There's a lot of information out there, and some of it is deliberate lies. Some of it is directly designed to confuse us and to get us so overwhelmed that we don't even want to deal with it anymore. Leave it to somebody else to do. They know they can handle it. I got other things to do. Gas prices are high as hell. Blah, 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 blah. Everything's more expensive. Normally these things just get left to legislators and professional politicians and lobbyists to handle. But the January 6th committee has done a really good job of bringing this and making it part of our attention span and really telling this story in a very human way. So we got some clips from the hearing. Let's see. The first one is, one of the things that Adam Schiff talked about was kind of the duty of regular people. And that's one of the things that I need you all to understand, that it is important when we talk about, people who work in the government and training and the resources they need and, easy jobs and stuff like that. The reason that we need talented people in the government isn't just to make sure that the government functions. We need to make sure that when there are times like this, where people want to abuse power, that there are people who are going to stand there and say, no, I took an oath of office. I believe in what I'm doing and I will do the right thing. That is important. And it is what we are able to learn now, and how many people didn't do that, but how literally democracy was saved because of people who did. Chair Mr. Schiff, Adam Schiff from California, who is kind of the leader on this portion of the hearing, these are some of the words he had to say about people, the ability and duty of regular people.
Oversee elections, secretaries of state, people in whom we placed our trust that they'll carry out their duties. But what if they don't? 2 weeks ago, New Mexico held its primary elections. One county commission refused to certify the results, citing vague, unsupported claims dealing with Dominion voting machines. The court stepped in, saying New Mexico law required the commission to certify the results. 2 of the 3 members of the commission finally relented. One still refused, saying his vote, quote, isn't based on any evidence, it's not based on any facts, it's only based on my gut feeling and my own intuition, and that's all I need. By the way, a few months ago, this county commissioner was found guilty of illegally entering the Capitol grounds on January 6th. This story reminds us of a few things. First, as we've shown in our previous hearings, claims that widespread voter fraud tainted the 2020 presidential election have always been a lie. Donald Trump knew they were a lie, and he kept amplifying them anyway. Everything we described today, the relentless.
So, I'm sorry, that was Benny Thompson. I pulled the wrong clip. That was Benny Thompson talking about how all of this came to fruition, how people still don't eat. The reason that we need this type of honesty and this type of accounting is because people don't believe the truth. I mean, you had this guy in New Mexico who's just sitting there going like, nope. And you know what he talked about? Dominion voting machines. He said, we can't certify the election because we used Dominion voting machines. Who the hell even knew about Dominion voting before Trump started talking about this stuff? I mean, think about how much stuff we've learned about civics because he tried to mess up and throw away democracy. People didn't even know about the electoral certification. It wasn't a big deal. January 6th comes and goes. It normally is like a line in a newspaper. But we didn't have an opportunity to do that or have that experience because there was a lie afoot. There was a lie afoot, and you can see what the impact that this lie has. You have a person who not only believes in the big lie, but after the Supreme Court of the state tells them that they do have to certify the election, he still refuses to vote to certify. And he says, I don't need facts. I don't need evidence. My gut is good enough. Your gut is full of lies, sir. And so so this is the implication of all of the lies and all of the scandals and stuff like that. So again, another reason that this is important that we get it out of the way. And also the committee did a great job of using people's words. It's not them saying it. It is the people that were there. They're saying it directly, the evidence. For example, they had Bill Barr, and he talked a little bit about the election in Georgia. So a lot of this that I'm going to show you today is about the election in Georgia, because there was this attempt to, in Georgia and several other battleground states, there was an attempt to just get them to do a number of things to steal the election by creating fake sets of electors. Like they had one group of electors, fake electors, because Michigan law says that you have to be in the Capitol to certify an election. Their plan, these fake electors, was to take a tour to go to the building the day before and spend the night in the building so that they can wake up and technically do it in the building. And one of the people was like, that's crazy. But here's Bill Barr talking about how they actually looked through all of this stuff and found out that none of it was true.
Took a hard look at this ourselves, and based on our review of it, including the interviews of the key witnesses, the Fulton County allegations had no merit. The ballots under the table were legitimate ballots. They weren't in a suitcase. They had been pre-opened for eventually feeding into the machine. All the stuff about the water leak and that there was some subterfuge involved. We felt there was some confusion, but there was no evidence of a subterfuge to create an opportunity to feed things into the count. And so we didn't see any evidence of fraud in the Fulton County episode.
No evidence of fraud. No evidence of fraud whatsoever. But that didn't stop Trump from saying that there was fraud. And not only did he say that there was fraud, he actually put some people in harm's way to get it done. So let's get some more context on the Georgia election, or the Georgia incident when it came to Trump's lies about fraud.
That you gave that someone's going to get killed. Representatives of President Trump appeared in Georgia, including Rudy Giuliani, and launched a new conspiracy theory that would take on a life of its own and threaten the lives of several innocent election workers. This story falsely alleges that sometime during election night, election workers at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, kicked out poll observers. After the observers left, the story goes, these workers pulled so-called suitcases of ballots from under a table and ran those ballots through counting machines multiple times. Completely without evidence, President Trump and his allies claimed that these suitcases contained as many as 18,000 ballots, all for Joe Biden. None of this was true. But Rudy Giuliani appeared before the Georgia State Senate and played a surveillance video from State Farm Arena, falsely claiming that it showed this conspiracy taking place. Here's a sample of what Mr. Giuliani had to say during that hearing.
And when you look at what you saw on the video, which to me was a smoking gun, powerful smoking gun, well, I don't have to be a genius to figure out what happened. And I don't have to be a genius to figure out that those votes are not legitimate votes. You don't put legitimate votes under a table.
No.
Wait until you throw the opposition out, and in the middle of the night, count them. We would have to be fools to think that.
President Trump's campaign amplified Giuliani's false testimony in a tweet pushing out the video footage. Giuliani likewise pushed out his testimony on social media. As you can see in this tweet, Mr. Giuliani wrote that it was, quote, now beyond doubt, unquote, that Fulton County Democrats had stolen the election. Later in this hearing, we'll hear directly from one of the election workers in this video.
So that's the theory that Bill Barr said didn't exist. Like he said, we checked it out, it didn't make sense. He told them that, and they kept going. They kept going. Listening to this family go through their pain, that's the that was the thing that got me. So let me tell you, let me give you the clips. This woman, Miss Moss, she is amazing, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her story herself. But this is one of the things that the January 6th committee is doing well. This is not a boring kind of, this is what happened from people who are used to testifying. This is a regular lady who wanted to do, oh, you know what, let me tell you, let her talk about it.
I was at work, like always, and the former chief, Mr. Jones, asked me to come to his office. And when I went to his office, the former director, Mr. Barron, was in there, and they showed me a video on their computer. It was just like a very short clip of us working at State Farm, and it had someone on the video like talking over the video, just saying that we were doing things that we weren't supposed to do, just lying throughout the video. And that's when I first found out about it.
And were there social media posts that they showed you responding to those false claims?
Well, when I saw the video, of course, the first thing that I said was like, why? Why are they doing this? What's going on? And they, just told me that Trump and his allies were not satisfied with the outcome of the election, and they were getting a lot of threats and being harassed online, and asked me, have I been receiving anything, and I need to check on my mom. And I told them, I was like, where have they, where have you been getting these threats? I don't believe I have any. And Mr. Jones told me, like, they're attacking his Facebook, and I don't really use Facebook. I have one, so I went to the Facebook app, and I'm just kind of panicky at this point because this has never happened to me, and my mom is involved, and I'm like her only child. So I'm just asking him, like, well, where are the messages? All I see is the feeds. Like, how do you get to the messages? And he said, it's another icon on your phone that says Messenger. And I went to that icon, and it was just a lot of horrible things there.
And those horrible things, did they include threats?
Yes, a lot of threats, wishing death upon me, telling me that, I'll be in jail with my mother, and saying things like, be glad it's 2020 and not 1920.
Were a lot of these threats and vile comments racist in nature?
A lot of them were racist. A lot of them were just hateful. But yes, sir.
In one of the videos we just watched, Mr. Giuliani accused you and your mother of passing some sort of USB drive to each other. What was your mom actually handing you on that video?
A ginger mint.
It wasn't just Rudy Giuliani. We heard President Trump.
Yeah, it wasn't just Rudy Giuliani. We heard President Trump do a lot of things and directed a lot of this because guess what? They wanted to cheat. They wanted to win. I'm sorry, I'm going to adjust my My lighting, yo. Sorry, I moved when it was over, when just now, and apparently I moved bad. Not only did they want to win, they didn't care who they hurt. This woman and her mother, a gingerment. They passed a gingerment, and it became the USB drive that they were these Democratic conspiracy people who were deep cover, deep state, who are doing all of these things. And it's like, this is this woman who is just doing her job, literally just at work. And let's see, there was something. Oh, the impact on civil servants, and so she and her mother's story that impacted me the most. And I'll let them speak for themselves a little bit later. But let's look at some of the other impacts that Trump and his team's ability or their activities caused.
Mr. President, it looks like you likely lost the state of Georgia. We're investigating. There's always a possibility. I get it. And you have the rights to go through the courts. What you don't have the ability to do, and you need to step up and say this, is stop inspiring people to commit potential acts of violence. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get shot. Someone's going to get killed. And it's not right. It's not right.
Mr. Sterling, what prompted you to make these remarks?
Mr. Schiff, we had a previously scheduled press conference that day, as we were in the habit of doing, trying to be as transparent as we could about the election and the counts going on. A little after lunch that day, lunchtime, I received a call from the project manager from Dominion Voting Systems, who was audibly shaken. She's not the kind of person I would assume would be that way. She has a master's from MIT, a graduate of the Naval Academy, and was very much on the ball and pretty unflappable. And she informed me about a young contractor they had who had been receiving threats from a video had been posted by some QAnon supporters. And at that point, we had been steeping in this kind of stuff. So it was around us all the time. So I didn't take note of it more than adding to the pile of other stuff we were having to deal with. And I did pull up Twitter, and I scrolled through it, and I saw the young man's name. There was a particular tweet that, for lack of a better word, was a straw that broke the camel's back. Had the young man's name. It was a very unique name. I believe he was a first-generation American. And it said, had his name, "You committed treason. May God have mercy on your soul," with a slowly twisting gif of a noose. And for lack of a better word, I lost it. I just got irate. My boss was with me at the time, the Deputy Secretary, Jordan Fuchs, and she could tell that I was angry. I tend to turn red from here up when that happens, and that happened at that time. And she called Secretary Raffensperger to say, "We're seeing these kind of threats, and Gabe thinks we need to say something about it." And Secretary said yes, and that's what prompted me to do what I did. I lost my temper, but it seemed necessary at the time because it was just getting...
Yeah, it was necessary at the time. You had a young contractor, got a good job working on elections, blah, 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 and he starts to get death threats on Twitter. His information and everything put out in the world. And I got to give it to this guy, like to stand up for the people that work for you. That is not something that we are used to seeing anymore. And that's also part of the problem. One of the other things that the January 6th committee does is that they provide an opportunity for us to really look at what has happened, the behind the scenes, and really get to say that these are the characteristics that we are looking for. These are the ones that we are not. Really getting to see what this is kind of like a review of people's activity and work. And I got to say, there are a lot of people who have demonstrated class, courage, integrity, even though I don't agree with them on most of the other things that they do. And in those spaces, I will come back to, hey, you suck, and we need to talk about why you suck. But in as much as I provide criticism when it's due, I also try to provide props where it's due, and big up to them for that. He went on in his press conference to really kind of make it plain.
It has all gone too far. All of it. Joe DeGenova today asked for Chris Krebs, a patriot who ran CISA, to be shot. A 20-something tech in Gwinnett County today has death threats and a noose put out saying he should be hung for treason because he was transferring a report on batches from an EMS to a county computer so he could read it. It has to stop. Mr. President, you have not condemned these actions or this language. Senators, you have not condemned this language or these actions. This has to stop. We need you to step up, and if you're going to take a position of leadership, show some. My boss, Secretary Raffensperger, his address is out there. They have people doing caravans around their house. They've had people come onto their property. It has to stop. This is elections. This is the backbone of democracy, and all of you who have not said a damn word are complicit in this.
Yo, this dude who has a desk job had to get up and tell off the President of the United States in a press conference to protect the integrity of our elections, to stand up and to say that this is too much and tell the President of the United States to stop it, to sound an alarm, which is by far more than the congressional Republicans have done, by far more than Mike Pence has done. Hell, Mike Pence was just complimenting Trump yesterday and is proud of the work that he did in the Trump administration. This is the type of stuff that when I talk about leadership, and again, I do not agree with this man's politics, don't. But when I talk about integrity and the type of leadership we need, this is what I'm talking about. Like I again, try to give props what props are due, because there's so little of it to give nowadays. Let's talk also about the additional pressure, but also when you look at this clip in particular, remember that they already knew that none of this stuff was true. Trump and his team knew, the top law enforcement officer of the United States, the Attorney General himself, not an assistant attorney general, not a deputy attorney general, not a general attorney, not a private attorney, the Attorney General told Trump that this was bullshit, literally said this is bullshit. And he did this anyway. That is the illegal part. And especially when you juxtapose the fact that the gentleman I just showed you, Strever, I think his name is, that he stood in the gap and said no more, and knowing that, basing it on the truth, this is the kind of stuff that Trump did, knowing what he was doing was a lie and illegal.
He posted multiple messages on Facebook listing the contact information for state officials and urging his supporters to contact them to, quote, demand a vote on decertification. In one of those posts, President Trump disclosed Mike Shirkey's personal phone number to his millions of followers.
All I remember is receiving over just shy of 4,000 text messages over a short period of time, calling to take action. It was a loud noise, loud, consistent cadence of, we hear that the Trump folks are calling and asking for changes in the electors, and you guys can do this. Well, they were believing things that were untrue.
These efforts also involved targeted outreach to state legislators.
Hi, Representative. My name is Angela McCallum. I'm calling from Trump campaign headquarters in Washington, D.C. You do have the power to reclaim your authority and send a slate of electors that will support President Trump and Vice President Pence.
From President Trump's lawyers and from Trump himself.
And I've become friendly with legislators that I didn't know 4 weeks ago.
Another legislator, Pennsylvania House Speaker Brian Cutler, received daily voicemails from Trump's lawyers in the last week of November.
Mr. Speaker, this is Rudy Giuliani and Janet Ellis. We're calling you together because we'd like to discuss, obviously, the election.
Hello, Mr. Speaker. This is Jenna Ellis, and I'm here with Mayor Giuliani.
Hey, Brian, it's Rudy. I really have something important to call to your attention that I think really changes things.
Cutler felt that the outreach was inappropriate and asked his lawyers to tell Rudy Giuliani to stop calling, but Giuliani continued to reach out.
I understand that you don't want to talk to me now. I just want to bring some facts to your attention and talk to you as a fellow Republican.
On December 30th, Trump ally Steve Bannon announced a protest at Cutler's home.
We're getting on the road and we're going down to Cutler. We're going to start going to offices, and if we have to, we're going to go to homes, and we're going to let them know what we think about them.
There were multiple protests. I actually don't remember the exact number. There was at least 3, I think, outside either my district office or my home. And you're correct, my son, my then 15-year-old son, was home by himself for the first one. All of my personal information was doxed online. It was my personal email, my personal cell phone, my home phone number. In fact, we had to disconnect our home phone for about 3 days because it would ring all hours of the night and would fill up with messages.
Brian Cutler, we're outside.
Clerks facing felony charges in Michigan. Poll watchers denied access in Pennsylvania.
These ads were another element in the effort. The Trump campaign spent millions of dollars running ads online and on television.
The evidence is overwhelming. Call your governor and legislators. Demand they inspect the machines and hear the evidence.
Public pressure on state officials often grew dangerous in the lead up to January 6th.
Let us in! Let us in! Let us in! Let us in! Special session! Special session! Special session! We'll light the whole shit on fire.
What are we going to do? What can you and I do to a state legislator besides kill him? Although we should not do that. I'm not advising that, but I mean, what else can you do, right?
The punishment for treason is death.
Yeah. Not a cult, not a terrorist organization. Honestly, you change the skin color, it doesn't look that different than the jihadis that they used to throw on TV all the time that describe how horrible Muslims were. Doesn't look that different except the change in skin color. Faces covered, brandishing weapons, trying to intimidate elected officials to get your way. That sounds pretty terrorist-like. And that's why this is important that we get the facts, because the terrorist will win if we don't stay true to the truth. Because at this point, that's all this is about, is the truth. And so some of this truth had an impact on real people. And we talked a little bit about Ms. Moss first. We're going to come back to her story, but let's also take a look at what else happened.
Mr. President, it looks like you likely lost the state of Georgia.
Whoops, wrong one. Oh, yeah, let's talk about Ms. Moss and how she feels.
Can you describe what you experienced listening to former President Trump attack you and your mother in a call with the Georgia Secretary of State?
I felt horrible. I felt like it was all my fault. Like, if I would have never decided to be an elections worker, like, I could have done anything else, but that's what I decided to do. And now people are lying and spreading rumors and lies and attacking my mom. I'm her only child, going to my grandmother's house. I'm her only grandchild. And my kid. It's just, I felt so bad. I just felt bad for my mom, and I felt horrible for picking this job and being the one that always wants to help and always there, and never missing out one election. I just felt like it was my fault for putting my family in this situation.
Well, it wasn't your fault.
It wasn't her fault. And we get that. We understand that in context. But do we actually get what that means?
it wasn't her fault, but she believes it is. She protects her family, and that's something she's going to have to deal with. Um, and that is a real thing. And again, the January 6th committee did a great job of humanizing this part of the story. This clip is a little long, but you get an opportunity to meet her mom and also a little bit more about what this did to their family. So bear with us, it's a little long, but it's absolutely worth it.
My name is Ruby Freeman. I've always believed that when God says that he'll make your name great, but this is not the way it was supposed to be. I could have never imagined the events that followed the presidential election 2020. For my entire professional life, I was Lady Ruby. My community in Georgia, where I was born and lived my whole life, knew me as Lady Ruby. I built my own business around that name, LaRuby's Unique Treasures, a pop-up shop catering to ladies with unique fashions. I wore a shirt that proudly proclaimed that I was, and I am, Lady Ruby. Actually, I had that shirt on. I had that shirt in every color. I wore that shirt on Election Day 2020. I haven't worn it since, and I'll never wear it again. Now I won't even introduce myself by my name anymore. I get nervous when I bump into someone I know in the grocery store who says my name. I'm worried about who's listening. I get nervous when I have to give my name for food orders. I'm always concerned of who's around me. I've lost my name, and I've lost my reputation. I've lost my sense of security, all because a group of people, starting with number 45 and his ally, Rudy Giuliani, decided to scapegoat me and my daughter, Shay, to push their own lies about how the presidential election was stolen.
Ms. Moss, how has this experience of being targeted by the former president and his allies affected your life?
It's turned my life upside down. I no longer give out my business card. I don't transfer calls. I don't want anyone knowing my name. I don't want to go anywhere with my mom because she might yell my name out over the grocery aisle or something. I don't go to the grocery store at all. I haven't been anywhere at all. I've gained about 60 pounds. I just don't do nothing anymore. I don't want to go anywhere. I second guess everything that I do. It's affecting my life in a major way. In every way, all because of lies. For me doing my job, same thing I've been doing forever.
Around the week of January 6th, the FBI informed me that I needed to leave my home for safety. And I left my home for safety around that time.
Understood. How long did you stay out? Did you, remain outside of your home for your own safety?
I stayed away from my home for approximately 2 months. It was horrible. I felt homeless. I felt, I can't believe this person has caused this much damage to me and my family. To have to leave my home, that I've lived there for 21 years. And, I'm having to have my neighbors watch out for me, and I have to go and stay with somebody. It was hard. It was horrible.
And that your conversation with the FBI about needing to leave your home for your own safety, or perhaps recommending it. Do you remember, was there a specific threat that prompted that, or was it the accumulation of threats that you had received?
What prompted it was getting ready to, January 6th was about to come. And they did not want me to be at home because of all the threats and everything that I had gotten. They didn't want me to be there in fear of, the people were coming to my home, and I had a lot of that. So they didn't want me to be there just in case something happened. I asked, how long am I going to have to be at home? And they said, at least until the inauguration.
Ms. Moss, I understand that people once showed up at your grandmother's house. Tell us about that experience.
I received a call from my grandmother. This woman is my everything. I've never even heard her or seen her cry ever in my life. And she called me screaming at the top of her lungs, like, Shay, oh my God, Shay, just freaking me out, saying that there were people at her home, and they, they knocked on the door, and of course she opened it and seeing who was there, who it was, and they just started pushing their way through, claiming that they were coming in to make a citizen's arrest. They needed to find me and my mom. They knew we were there. And she was just screaming and didn't know what to do. And I wasn't there, so, I just felt so helpless and so horrible for her. And she was just screaming. I told her to close the door. Don't open the door for anyone. And, she's a 70-something, I won't say, year-old woman, and she doesn't like having restrictions. She wants to answer the door. She likes to get her steps in, walking around the neighborhood, and I had to tell her, like, you can't do that. You have to be safe. She would tell me that at night, people would just continuously send pizzas over and over to her home, and they was expecting her to pay for these large amounts of pizzas, and she went through a lot that she didn't have to. And once again, it made me just feel so horrible.
In addition, play the tape.
There is nowhere I feel safe. Nowhere. Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you? The President of the United States is supposed to represent every American, not to target one. But he targeted me, Lady Ruby, a small business owner, a mother, a proud American citizen who stand up to help Fulton County run an election in the
middle of a pandemic. That's what she did. That's what she did. She helped Fulton County run an election in the middle of a pandemic. And for her service, the President of the United States had his people attack her. He put her out. He knew what was going to happen. And he's even doing it now. They haven't stopped. That is why this is important. That's why this is important. There is a difference between holding people accountable. There is a difference between that and attacking them and trying to destroy them. The president and his allies, they knew that this wasn't true. They knew that everything that they were saying about the ballots, about this, the scanning and the USB, they knew that all of that was false. They knew. and they did it anyway. And I believe that it wasn't just that they didn't care about what damage happened to people, that they wanted people to know, because that's how intimidation works. That's how shakedowns work. I burned down somebody's restaurant a few blocks away to let you know that I can. I don't have to worry about you paying anymore. The next time an election worker gets a phone call, I'm not it. And honestly, one of the things that they covered in the trial, or in the hearing, was that all of the people that worked in that election office, none of them are there anymore. What does that mean when we have a circumstance where we can't get people to take jobs? It means that we're going to end up getting either fewer people or less talented people to take these jobs, which means that, or people who have corrupt intent, like we talked about earlier about the dude in New Mexico. He literally was convicted of being part of the insurrection, or that entire activity, and he's an elected official who is refusing to do his duty and states it outright that there are no facts that support him. It's his gut, and that's enough. It is important that we tell these stories. It is important that we share this information with as many people as possible. Because if we don't, the lies will take over. People's lives will be ruined. People's lives are already ruined, and we need to stop them. Again, if you could, just reach out to the January 6th committee, tell them thank you for the work that they've been doing, and make sure that they know that it is appreciated. Reach out to your elected official and other elected officials around the area, and also the companies that support them. Let them know that this is important. And again, accountability. They did it. They did these things. They ruined people's lives. They should be held accountable. Also recognize that some of the people are going to say, well, aren't you doing the same thing to them that they did to the lady? No. The difference for me is not the tactic necessarily. It is the rationale. They knew what they were doing was wrong. So all of the activities that fall from that are fruit of the poisonous tree. Like, you knew it was wrong. And so it's important that we hold them accountable. It is important that we have a shared understanding of the facts so that we can ensure that this doesn't happen again. Because if we don't stop it now, we don't stop people like the guy in New Mexico, if we don't stop all of these people who are doing these things to try to undermine democracy in our elections, they will win. They'll win. Why? Because they won't stop, because we won't stop them. We have got to stop them. Yeah. Because if not, more people will refuse to go into public service, which will just leave it available for those with corrupt intent. It's our turn to do something. They have put the information out for us. We can see what is happening. And again, no storyline. This is what people said happened. This is what they experienced. That's just it. That's all it is. And we have an opportunity to step up and to say, no, this is wrong. Remember in the first impeachment when he asked Ukraine to do him a favor to find dirt on Joe Biden. They said, oh, Susan Collins especially was like, oh, he's been impeached. He will be very careful in the future. Then January 6th happened. They tried to impeach him again, literally days after there was an assassination attempt for the leaders of Congress. Like that happened, and it was directed by the president. Like, think about that. The call was coming from inside the House, the White House. It is important that we hold the line, and not just hold it. It is important that we push back on them and that we defeat them. This is part and parcel of a larger mind state that is happening in the elite white community about their need to hang on to power. They will do anything. And unfortunately for them, Donald Trump has just laid the playbook bare. Normally, we think some of these things may be happening in the background, but this is happening up front, and we need to say no. We do not elect people without integrity. We don't just try to win for the sake of winning. Because if we do, we will end up losing. The Republican Party, back to as far as I remember back through the contract with America with Newt Gingrich, the Republican Party started focusing back then on winning more than it focused on doing the right thing. And now we end up in a situation where the Texas Republican Party has put secession into its bylaws because the truth doesn't matter. It's just the win. And if you can't win outright and you can't cheat, then you take your ball and go home. Remember that they said we're headed for a civil war, a race war, 1776. That's what they want, because there's this teenage boy fantasy about being in battle and fighting and how things go. You can tell a lot about people who have been in fights. Many of them try to avoid them because they take a toll. People who have had to fight understand the value of peace. Unfortunately, a lot of these people have only experienced privilege. All they know is being in charge and getting their way. This entire plot is carrying to the next level. Like, this is some stuff like on a one-on-one basis or a small business. This is something that happens. This is what happens when white elites do not get their way. When people with privilege decide that they want to stand in the gap, or not stand in the gap, they want what they want, no matter if there is a gap. They don't want to have to contribute more than they want. Like, that is what this is. And also, that's why we need to handle it on an individual level. That's why when there are microaggressions or macroaggressions on an individual basis, those need to be checked. Because if they don't, they just permeate. It becomes part of people's character and habits. And they need to be concerned about doing this. If you are not concerned about disrupting the lives of others, if you are not concerned about doing the wrong thing, if you're not concerned about consequences of doing illegal actions like overturning the freaking government, if you are not concerned about that, then you are a problem. You become more dangerous than most of the other people that are out there. We need to make sure that there are consequences for this action, not just to punish those who did it, because that needs to be done, but also to let those who are thinking about doing it, who are planning it and doing it now, we need to hold these current people accountable so that we don't have to worry about this again. That Lady Ruby, the next Lady Ruby, does not have to worry about having her entire life ruined because of lies. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we will be black tomorrow.